So last video we spoke about mathematical operations, and we showed off this nice little website called pythoncheatsheet.org, which is really important because it shows you a lot of interesting and important stuff about Python. Don't worry too much about going through all the things for now. Look at the Python basics and the math operation, and it shows us how all these stuff work. Next, we are going to talk about this last operation that we didn't discuss before, which is modulo. Modulus is the remainder, which means if I divide how much is left over. So I'm going to call this one, I'm going to call this mod.py, and I'm going to create a separate folder, and we're going to talk about this by itself. So mathops is my mathematical operations, and mod is my Python is a specific mathematical operation. Now this is still a mathematical operation, which means it takes in two numbers, it gives us back a number. But how does it work? If I have 25 divided by 25 divided by 3, right? If I just print 25 divided by 3, and I run that, so we're going to run this mod file, I get back 8.333, which means I have a remainder of 1, right? It's 8 with 1/3 remainder. Now, if I just wanted to know the remainder, if I didn't want to know anything before, I just wanted to know what's the remainder, I would use modulus. So I print 25 modulus 3. And this is just going to show the remainder. So if I run the same code again, 1, because there's a 1 remainder. That 1 is 1 divided by 3, so that's how I get 0.3333 repeating over here, but the reality is it's just a 1. So if I take, now, here's an interesting thing. Now, here's some interesting and important things to realize about modulus. If I have 1, so if I take this line of code and we just say 1, right, we're just going to take this and I'm going to say 1 modulus 3. Now I'm going to go Control D or Command D on a Mac. And I'm just going to duplicate this a bunch of times. And I'm going to change this number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Now, if I run all this, right, I'm just going to get the modulo for the numbers 1 to 13, which means the remainder after division. So if I run this, notice how there's a pattern here. It's 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0. Why? Because once I reach 3, it's a whole number, right? So 3 divided by 3 gives me back 1 with a 0 remainder. 6 divided by 3 is, again, it's a multiple of 3. It's going to give me back a 0 remainder. So it will only ever modulus will only ever give us back 0. It will give us back from 0, including from 0 until the number before our final number. So 0, 1, 2 are all the numbers it would give back. If I took the same thing and I did it to 2, if I did 2 instead of 3, right? So, and this is why we have variables, so we're going to call this d equals 2. And I'm going to replace all these with d. Now, there is another type of thing that I could do to make this code run faster, but since we haven't covered it yet, that thing is called a loop. Since we haven't covered it yet, I have to write this all manually. D, and as soon as I'm done doing this, I'm going to run this program, and you'll notice now that it's only going to be 1s and 0s. If I change the value of d, and this is why we use variables, because now if I do my next example and I change the value of d to 5, it gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, right? It's always going to go until right before the number. So it's 0 until right before the number. I'm stressing this. It will make sense why I'm stressing this later, but for now, understand modulo. Modulo is the remainder after division, and the value on the right side, which means the thing that we're dividing by, is going to be the max non-inclusive. That's everything else we do is always going to do that. Now I'm sure you're wondering what happens if I do a negative number. So just to show you, if I, let's say, do -4, and if I comment out everything else aside from 4, and I run this, right, I get back 1. Why do I get back 1? For complicated and slightly confusing mathematical reasons. But understand that even that in a negative, that when I use modulus with a negative number, I will still get back a positive number between 0 and 4. No matter what the number you give is, you will always get back a number between 0 and whatever, between 0 and the max. And what happens if we do 0.5, right? If I give back a float, I will get 0.5. So if we use a float, we get back some sort of float. And that is also important to know, and it's also realize that you might want to end up combining this with integer division. Why exactly we would do that, or how this plays into future programming things, don't worry too much. Understand this though. Modulo means remainder, and it gives us back a value between 0 and whatever the number is. Whoops, control. I'm just going to uncomment this. Remember, I'm using control and slash and control slash, and run this one last time to see the whole pattern of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. Right. Okay. That is modulus. Hopefully this video was clear. I realize it's kind of a weird thing that you're not really used to. It's not something that comes up outside of computer science and advanced mathematics and specific fields in advanced mathematics. But it is a very important thing to know, and that is why I include a separate video for it. As always, if you have any questions, let me know.